Checking in on?
Hello, yes. So hey everyone, I'm On, and I'm here to chat with you a little bit about next generation social virtual reality. And the question that I kind of want to ask us all is like, what would it be like if we built it ourselves this time? I will tell you that among other things I'm going to talk about today, I'm also a parent. I have a 12-year-old. I'm not talking about that per se, I just want to put that out there. This presentation is PG-13. I am largely, though, talking about spaces which are not appropriate for people who are under 18. Again, that's not going to be obvious from the presentation, but if you're interested in this, I encourage it, but let's have a conversation about how you might introduce younger members of your family if that's a thing that you want to do. Okay, so most important slide, also the QR code is here. Everything I talk about I'm going to link, so if you have any questions, you don't need to write them down. You can find everything I'm talking about there. So what I'm going to do today is do a really quick whirlwind tour of projects, some of which I am building, some of which I've contributed to, and some of which I just admire. There's a lot, and again, so I did a link round up there. So who am I? I'm an artist, a designer, a researcher, and a software engineer. I've been involved in the web and computer-mediated communications for a really long time. I have a degree in fine arts from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I have a master's from MIT at the Media Lab, where I focused on epistemology and learning. And I have a PhD in architecture from École Polytechnique in Switzerland, where I wrote my dissertation on new technologies for stage performance. For the same amount of time, and maybe even longer, I've been part of the furry fandom. And this, I promise you, is highly relevant to this conversation. There are several reasons why furries are particularly good at community in general, and especially good at online community. And that whole thing is actually a different talk, but it is something that I want to highlight one of the very important reasons a little bit later. I've been around for a while, as I mentioned. This is just the virtual bit. I started getting involved with online virtual communities when I was probably too young to be on the internet. When I was 12, 13, 14, close your ears, don't do that. But I was online chatting and text muds. And the one that I kind of spent the most time on was called Furry Muck. It still exists. Again, been around forever. It is a fully text-based virtual world where you just type and read. And as somebody who was a kid who was obsessed with libraries and obsessed with books, text was it. I was so hooked. It was like an entire virtual world. And I think everything I'm going to talk about has always, in my mind, kind of had to measure up against that. Like, does it do as well as plain text does? Which, again, for me is a high watermark. Somewhere in graduate school, I saw a presentation by the company that made Second Life. It was an early prototype, and I signed up, and I was an alpha tester. So I was an alpha tester. Basically, my Second Life account is older than some of my coworkers, which is weird. But I was on there pretty early. And then a little bit later, after graduate school, I landed at IBM in the Center for Social Software doing research on computer-mediated technologies and kind of what they have to do with business specifically. And IBM was super interested in Second Life. They wanted to use it for a meeting platform and to help people kind of reduce travel costs. So I actually spent 2 years while at IBM, essentially every day in Second Life building and making things for meetings.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's a whole other talk. Yep. Yeah, that's another. Ask me later. I'll tell you stories. So after IBM research, I kind of wanted something new. I'm not going to talk about this, but I did an 11-year stint in Europe. So I went to Switzerland, did a whole bunch of different stuff. And then something happened in 2019. I don't know what it was. Major world pandemic. And it changed a lot of things. Like everybody, I was stuck inside. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that with regards to VR in a second. But I found myself like at a crossroads. My partner and I were not sure what our next move was, and we said, I said, I want to get back into industry. And it turned out that VR Chat was hiring. So I went to work for them. So for 36 months or so basically just short of 3 years, I was the head of systems design for VR Chat. That's what people kind of key in on, and that's cool. And I'm very proud of the work I did there. I had some incredible coworkers. But I like to put it on this timeline because that's like a blip for me, right? I've been involved in doing this work for a long time, and I'm not stopping. And that's really what I want to talk about is actually the stuff that I'm doing now with an open source engine called Basis and a few other things. For all of this, you don't need a headset. If you are curious about this and have never done it, know that you don't need one. You can use your computer. You can also use your phone. It's not as satisfying, but it can be done. first person changes everything. And here's a little bit of my VR origin story. So prior to 2019, I was living and working in Switzerland, mostly writing, teaching, talking about new technologies for stage. My work around that time was heavily focused on what mobile devices were doing to us. So I, again, I'm sort of old enough to remember a time when we didn't have these, and something really weird happened where we were all carrying around computers that had GPS in them. They knew where you were. They could stream information. We stopped talking about going online because everybody was always online. You could craft things. You could author things. You could basically occupy an alternate reality at any time. So I could be in a public park and I could be chatting with a friend, or I could be playing a game. I could be riding on the subway. I could be reading the news and then switch to a game. So all these things that you could do. And so I was super focused on that, and my sort of allegiance to text made me feel like VR was not the way. It was sort of like, VR is huge, it's clunky, it's not democratic, super expensive, really annoying. Like, what is going on here? I work sometimes with Justine and Ian Garrett. Together we're called Toaster Lab. They're based in Toronto, Canada. And we do, again, a lot of sort of theater-related work. In 2019, we got a sizable grant from the Canadian government to run a project called the Atelier. It was meant to bring together a whole bunch of practitioners for XR, which is just a term for, the X stands for VR, AR, MR, like all the Rs. So we wanted to bring people together, and the grant allowed us to do 6 in-person sessions where we actually, again, would kind of bring everyone together, do a show and tell, and it was super cool, and we managed exactly one, and then again, the pandemic hit. So we talked to the grantors and said, do you want your money back? Like, what do we do with this? And they said, no, we don't want your money back, or the money back. We don't know what to do either. Figure it out. So we kind of, after panicking, decided to do each one of the subsequent 5 sessions in a different platform. So one of them we did in, actually this was the same one, but we did it primarily in what was called Altspace, no longer exists. And then some of it in Mozilla Hub also no longer exists. You're going to hear that phrase a lot. And so this is me, and this is Ian and Justine. And this was the first talk I ever gave in VR, we gave there in Altspace.
Was that a person's POV that took the screenshot, or is that a camera?
This is a person's POV. This one I'm pretty sure is somebody standing on the stage. So if I move this, no, I can't move it. But if I move this side, this is the stage. So someone's right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry. So this actually this experience was really unsatisfying. Was what I was getting at. Is I was like, okay, fine, we're gonna do this VR, and I was like, oh man, this sucks. I was really didn't enjoy it, and I was trying to figure out why. I was like, what is going on? And I mean, part of it was like it was missing limbs. Right. Part of it was that there's just something off about it. So I dipped back into Second Life just for nostalgia. These are some photos of me hanging out with furry friends in 2009. You can tell something interesting, which is like the aesthetic doesn't change a whole lot. But that aside, I went back into Second Life, and I was like, okay, guys, like I need to find out where the cool kids are. Like, what is going on with virtual worlds? And I wasn't sort of hitting on anything, but a friend came along and said, you've got to go to VR chat. I said, okay, what's that? Fine. I kind of knew what it was. I'd seen videos online. I wasn't that into it. But I had a bit of an epiphany. I love this photo. Chris is not here. This is our friend Chris Critter, if some of you know. This is, to me, one of the most delightful images. It's Chris. I say this with all the affection in my heart, mansplaining to me the layers of fandom in the space that we're in. So we're in 3D, and we're on a replica of a Starship Enterprise that was actually built by this person. It has all this back lore, and he's telling me about this dude and why we're on the spaceship. It goes on, and I just started laughing my head off and taking this picture. And there were a few experiences where I was like, man, what's happening? And for me, what I realized was that all of the stuff I felt about VR was true. Like, it's heavy, it's complicated, it's isolating, it disconnects your sensorium. But what it does in the computer's part is it puts you back into an analog state. You can't use your phone. You can't text. You can only talk to the person in front of you, and your body language starts to matter again. And this was something that I was like, holy, right? Like, this was like, wow, okay, I get it. And so for me, that's sort of what the hook was. I felt like we finally had come full circle in terms of computer-mediated communication back to, in some senses, or the possibility of one of the most healthy ways of interacting. It's like, cool, I want to do more of that. Let's amplify that. So I'm going to switch and talk about open source stuff, but I want to say that VR chat itself still has a lot to offer. If you've never experienced it, you owe yourself a visit. Bring a friend. Even better, attend an event. So one of my favorite events is Furality, which is an online furry convention. It's happening right now. It started today, and it goes through the weekend. It's complete with excellent DJs. There's a full dealer's den, and they have annual attendance of about 20,000. So it's a pretty sizable con. It arguably is the largest furry con in the world. Depends on how you count that. And like most furry cons, it's also a fundraiser. So they managed to raise, I think, close to $300,000 last year for Trans Lifeline, which is pretty freaking cool. Quick photo, a group photo of my friends, a bunch of my friends hanging out at one of the Furalities a couple years ago. Okay, so why, like, if I just told you that I thought this was super cool and like we're landing here, why do we want to talk about anything else? And it kind of is this. 2014 was a long time ago, and social VR never had a normal childhood. If you think about sort of meaningful internet technologies that are impactful, or like really any technology, you'll see a similar trajectory, which is that a cool idea kind of pops up, and then a whole bunch of people try it, and then somebody manages to kind of turn it into a business or a hobby, and most of them thrash, a few of them fail, some of them emerges, and then they kind of get folded back into daily life. Social VR never had that opportunity because from its inception, it was always locked inside of a box of proprietary and hard to manufacture technologies. So if we look at 2013 is the year that Oculus Rift prototype shipped. This is like, there's obviously, or maybe not obviously, there is a history to VR that extends way back in time. But this is largely considered the kind of renaissance because this hardware became widely available in this very short period of time. So 2013, the Oculus Rift shipped. 2014, VR chat launches. Facebook buys Oculus. 2016, they shipped their first commercial thing that you can actually just buy off the shelf. And then we have a couple of years in here, and then by 2019, the Quest 1 is released. That's the first wireless headset. So you're actually now able to disconnect from the computer and move around a bit. And there's other stuff going on here too. But then Valve releases the Index, and then the pandemic hits. So in really quite like quick succession, we have one or two companies making all of the things, and then the reason why the pandemic is important is that this sort of artificially pumped the numbers. Because everyone's stuck inside looking for something to do. It felt like maybe it was a revolution, but maybe it wasn't. It sort of was like this kind of odd bump in users around this period. In any case, on the back of that, we released the Quest 2, which is still one of the most widely released headsets. Chances are if you have one at home, you probably have a Quest 2. Facebook rebranded itself to Meta, if you remember that. Yeah. 2021, 1 year later. Less than 12 months later, they started their layoffs, having burned through something like $10 billion. I don't even know what the number was. It's insane. So this is not how you build something, right? Like, this is chaotic and crazy to me. I think that we should go back and spend a little bit of time and see what this technology actually is for and how we might approach it. And that's kind of the overall message as I show you some stuff. Yeah.
I love it.
AltSpace, acquired by Microsoft 2017, shut down in 2023. Rec Room just shut down this year, like a month ago. High Fidelity shut down 2020. Sansar was VR Chat's Second Life's attempt, shut down in 2020. Facebook we know about. Mozilla Hub shut down. The Wave shut down. I'm not saying that everything deserves to shut down, but something's happening. Among other things, like who knows what the future holds. Basically, Roblox and VR Chat are what really remains of the closed commercial platforms. Vendor lock is a bummer. As a creator, not just technically. So technically there's an issue here, right? Which is anything that you want to do, you have to use their SDK, whatever that is. And there isn't a lot of room to play with that. Like there's some ability to extend it, but you're kind of locked into what they would like you to do. As a quick example, VR Chat has no data ingress or egress, and there's good security reasons for that. But anything that you'd want to do on the network, you really can't. You can't actually get your world to access things outside without jumping through a great number of hoops. It's sort of like feeding your stuff through OSC or through really weird hacks like embedding data into video players, which is something I've done, but it's really strange. Reputationally, you're locked in. If I want to run an event, I have to run it through somebody else's platform. So it's like saying all of my art shows are going to be held at the local McDonald's. Fine, like it's nice of them to host it, but like, what if someone doesn't want to go there? Financially, it's a problem. You're beholden to their financial model and how you might charge for things. If you wanted to do ticket sales, it's really tough. Furality manages it. But also, alignment with values is a really big one for me. It's not clear that a single platform is capable of encompassing all of the possible use cases in a way that is happy for everyone. In fact, it kind of is none of those things. It sort of ends up with this weird middle ground that no one is super happy with. So I think the future is smaller, more distributed, run and moderated by the communities that actually use it. This leads me to Basis. So the project that I am most keen on is this. Basis is a framework. It is not a platform. I'm going to say that like 4 times. So here, it is the engine that you can use to make these things if you would like to. The developer's name is Luke Dooley. He just goes by Dooley. Furry. Basis VR is aggressively open source. It is community funded. It's only about 18 months old. And again, it's primarily one developer. The thing that I really like about it, actually, it's weird. I didn't come to it, kind of like I didn't come to VR because I was super into the tech. I didn't really come to Basis because I was into VR. I was looking for people who are doing governance and financial support for social stuff online, not using the VC model. And so that's how I got here, is that, and what I really love is that they have this very robust philosophy and mission that they've spent time to kind of spell out. Like, here's our values, here's what we want to do, here's our focus. They do take direct donations, and then I'm going to show you an example. They also do this neat thing where they do collaboration with companies. So companies say, I want to use you, I need this particular piece of the tech, and then in exchange for funding it, they also agree to give it back to Basis. So like Basis will build it out.
What does VC stand for?
Oh, venture capital, which is the standard way to like run tech businesses these days, actually at all, and kind of where you get into. So without going into a whole bunch of economics, the idea is basically you have an idea, you sell it to somebody on credit. They give you a bunch of money to run your business, and then the idea is you become profitable and you pay them back. But that gap between you taking the money and paying it back, there's a lot of stuff that happens. And generally what doesn't happen is that you get to do stuff that is best for the community, because you have to make financial decisions instead. Okay, I just realized that I've talked for a long time. Can I keep going? Okay, heck yeah.
Any problems with that? No.
All right, thank you.
Speakers are happy.
Thank you, thank you, Jesse. All right. So, okay, so I want to show you a quick example of one of those collaborations, but you can kind of think of them also as like code bounties almost. So the idea again is like if I'm like, I want to use Basis, but it is missing this thing, I'm willing to pay $1,000. And Basis says, okay, cool, we'll take your 1,000, we'll match it, and we have some developers in the wings who are really good at this, we'll pull them in. And I like this model a lot. Okay, so 3 minutes not for me, here's Basis.
Wait, whoa. Are we stuck in Unity?
No. That would be terrible. We're actually in Basis VR, an open source MIT licensed VR framework that enables developers to make VR games easily.
What? Is this like a game?
Basis VR is not a game, but it very easily can be. The VR industry is in a pivotal state. With large studios cutting funding, many people working in the industry are concerned that the craft could disappear. VR frameworks have traditionally been created in-house as proprietary solutions. However, industry veterans came together and recognized the need for an open source solution that could be used by indie developers and large studios alike. Thus, Basis VR was created. XR input, audio, player controls, networking, asset bundle loading, and more, all taken care of for you in a package you can download, use, and even host on your own server.
And you have custom avatars?
Yep.
Custom worlds?
Yep.
Props?
Yes.
Is it cross-platform?
Yes, with native clients for Windows, macOS, Linux, iOS, and Android.
Custom programming?
Yes, you can use C# with safeties managed by the Sillbox interpreter.
Face and eye tracking?
Yep.
Full body tracking with beautiful IK?
Yeah, but check back in a couple months. Whether you want to create your dream game, give a compelling immersive presentation to your clients, or provide an unforgettable musical experience to your fans, Basis VR is a toolset that brings your vision to life. We love VR, and VR is about to get a lot better. Basis VR is currently in heavy development, with progress being publicly published on the official website. For more information, check out basisvr.org. What are you gonna make?
Okay. That's Red Azuki, who is a furry streamer, and they just showed up, basically, like a lot of people, and said, "Hey, I love this. Can I make this video?" It's like, heck yeah, you can. So that's it's great. I really like the energy. I said it before. Basis is not a platform. Let's say it one more. No, really, Basis, not a platform. If you show up to our chats, which I really hope you do, and you call it a platform, the gang will have heard that you called Basis a platform. No, I'm really serious. That shtick was a little silly, but something that happens daily is that someone shows up to the Discord because they're really fed up with VR chat or Rec Room or fill in the blank, and they say, I want this to be the next thing. And it could be, but you have to build it. Yes?
Did Rec Room get shut down?
Rec Room got shut down last week, yes. So you know it is a platform. I'm just going to point at this. I really like this. This is a different project. I'm not going to talk about it, but you should also know about Resonite, also furry. Not a surprise. Yellow Dog Man Studios, they're based in the Czech Republic. This used to be called Neos for reasons. Resonite is awesome. I think of it as the Arch Linux of VR, though. It is super fiddly. You have to really love this, and you have to want to be deep in the weeds of adjusting things. And yeah, if you are, though, this is great. And technically, they do amazing stuff, really worth checking out. It is also closed source, so slightly less relevant to my interest in that respect. Okay, really though, what is a platform? A platform is a burger. It's everything you need in a complete sandwich, in a convenient, holdable form. Burgers are delicious, and there's a huge wide range of them from like high-end ground steak to McDonald's and everything in between. The trouble is that if you overbuild your platform, you back yourself into a corner, because what your customers want is a burger, but you're going to insist on giving them an entire franchise. And this is what I was saying earlier. So you really just want to try something out, but the standardization will force you into certain decisions. So 80 is about how many user-generated content or UGC avatars that you can fit into a Quest VRAM before the headset falls over and dies. So that determines the upper bounds for everybody at all times, even folks with insane GPUs. If you don't have that product limit, you can do a lot more. So with something like Basis, we can do hyper-optimization. So this is a quick video. I'm going to mute it because I think somebody says this is effing awesome. Close your ears. But what's happening here is that this is an instance that is currently running 500 users simultaneously, and the person who's shooting it is getting 75 frames a second. That is very good. I will say this was several months ago. We have since done 1,000, and I was talking to Dooley last night, and he's told me that we're confident we can do 2,000 people in a single instance.
Whoa. Once you hit 80 in VR chat, you're talking seconds per frame anyway.
That's right. Yeah. And so there's a combination of fixing some of that stuff, and also then doing hyper-optimization on top with the networking. And we're able to do that. Okay, so I want to show you another quick video. This is one of those projects that I mentioned. So this is a standalone project, which is part of Basis. It's a thing called jiggle physics. Yep, I promise you it's PG-13. What you're going to see is an implementation of a physics engine that is used to make flexible body parts. So, what's that? Horse, maybe. I don't know what that is. But ears, tails, breasts, butts, clothes, hair, anything that you'd want to jiggle on your avatar and not look like it's bolted to your body would probably use this type of engine. Oops.
We're indie game devs who make heavy use of jiggle physics.
What's this?
This is other solution A that I found. How does it look?
The jiggles could be better. How's performance?
Not good. Maybe we could develop our own in-house solution that's faster?
Most solutions calculate drag in world space, making the entire solve react to velocity instead of acceleration. Video game platforms and vehicles immediately show the flaw in this design. To solve this, we use a novel approach that decouples air drag and mechanical drag, allowing it to act as expected. Elevators are another common situation where velocity-based simulations look wrong. You can see that instead of floating away, our solution properly gets pushed to the floor as the elevator comes to a stop, as happens in real elevators. It's a lot of math, though. That could cost a lot of performance.
Not if we integrate it with the Unity's job system. Unity Jobs allows jiggle physics to run asynchronously and within native code. This gives it a huge speed boost. but it comes with the trade-off in initialization time. Jiggle physics mitigates a lot of this cost by trickling the data frame by frame, causing there to be a short delay before jiggles start working when an object gets spawned in. We preferred the delay over causing the game to hitch. We spent a lot of time removing jitter from the system. The interplay between fixed update, and the Unity animator makes it really easy to get buried under layers and layers of jitter sources. Have you heard that all computer problems are either a signal processing or cache invalidation problem? Anyway, we introduced a small delay and light signal processing on both the input and output data, which largely eliminated most of the jitter.
Here we have a ragdoll, updated by physics, and a skin-to-mesh renderer, updated by the animator, steadily accelerating to high speed. These systems work quite differently under the hood, and they both need to work seamlessly. Multithreading also made basic features like animated parameters a challenge, as they need to be supplied carefully to the job system.
Despite that, we did put in effort, and you can see that we respond to parameter changes from an animator. OneSolve doesn't even allow this at all.
Okay, I'm pausing it there to stay in comfy zones, but this is actually super relevant to the conversation. All of the solutions work extremely well in this case, and they have for years, and that's because default preoccupation of the developers of these systems is baked into the physics engines of the universe. The things that people care about are what they build. So, furries ruin everything. I don't think so. I think furries bring a different and much needed perspective, obsession to detail, and preoccupation with alternate possibility that opens up a whole new universe, actually. Let me just finish the So, these particular furs have a reason that they want bodies to work differently than standard systems do. And they have spent all the time. Now, yes, they got paid, but also you end up with a different set of possibilities baked, again, into the physics engines of the worlds. And I think that is really, really important. Maybe it's not always furries, but it has to be people who are not the same folks that we've been relying on forever. Okay, so going back to our anatomy of a platform, basis is meat. Who's doing the login? I don't know. Who's doing the hosting? I don't know. Who's doing identity? I don't know. I kind of do. Who's doing avatar storage? I kind of know that one too, maybe a little bit. I am not going to talk about this project because we're not ready to talk about it, but I am the designer on I don't want to say official, a parallel project that goes along with Basis that is working specifically on identity. If you're interested in the nerd bits, we're going to use PCAR, key signing, to do a distributed identity platform that will plug into this. It will not be exclusive. You can continue to build your own, you can use something else, but we think that it would make sense for there to be a kind of reference implementation for how that might work. A thing that yes, go ahead.
So, the platform stuff, experimental, not fully figured out, but can I just ask one very blunt question?
Yeah.
Is this a platform like Mastodon, or is this a platform like Blue Sky?
It is a platform like ActivityPub. Does that help?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I like hearing ActivityPub instead of
Yeah.
Proto.
It's not a Basis itself doesn't provide these bits. Somebody needs to. And the idea is that Basis doesn't want to even necessarily do social VR. You could use it to do any game. You could use it to build Half-Life Alyx. You could use it to build, So the thought of Basis is that they just provide the tough parts like networking and synchronization and avatars, like all that stuff. And you build what you want around it. I am going to talk about this one because I'm building this. It looks a little bit like a platform because it's a little bit like a platform. I'm really interested in figuring out how we can do something that tackles a couple of problems. Discoverability, also known as basically search. Like, how do you find stuff? How do you find your people? So how do you form groups? And how do you do within that moderation and targeting? So you can say, this is appropriate for my group. It is not appropriate necessarily for your group. How do you do that kind of scoping? And I have a lot of thoughts for that, and I'm taking the time to build it out the way that I think should work, and hopefully people will use it, and I will fold them in, and that's what I'm doing. So this exists. Right now it's fairly bare bones, but you can upload content. There's a bunch of free content that folks have uploaded there. It's backed by another project of mine, which is just a CDN, a content delivery network for shipping the content files. So when you upload there, content on VR or on Basis is stored in what's called a B file. It's an encrypted at rest container. Basis encrypted encapsulation, I think. Not to go too nerd details, but why that's interesting, you can take all of the content that you need for all of those platforms, like Mac, PC, Android. You can package it into a single thing, and then you can store that single thing on any server, whether you trust it or not, because you're storing an encrypted block. With the password, then, Basis can reach into that, take just the content that it needs, so it saves on networking, and extract that bit. And that's all handled for you. So bfile.io lets you distribute those. You can also just put them on Google Docs, which is what a lot of people use these days. What I want is I want you to be able to go here, and I want you to then drop in with a headset on. That's my goal. I'm getting there, so I built a thing that I call a runner. It lets you register an Electron app just on any machine that you want. You get a key, and with that you can, let's see, will this play? Yeah, okay. So you can choose which source you want, official basis, which build you want, say nightly, and then where you want to run it, locally on your local Docker or on a cloud. And then this just kind of chills. It's registered up with the website. Again, you're hosting your content wherever you want. So then as you find stuff that you like, you can say, go ahead, launch it on my gaming PC. It spins itself up, and then it announces itself back to the website, and this is how you get there. Yes?
What about Tari?
Tari. Oh, why am I not using Tari instead of Electron? Rust. I don't hate Rust, I just don't know Rust.
Rust LTD?
So I use, they were asking me about why I built this in Electron. Yeah.
We are closing in on time without here.
Good, that's it. I'm done. In conclusion, I have 3 quick slides. Social VR is in a really precarious spot. No single company is going to make the world that you and your friends deserve. No help is coming. You need to build it ourselves. Please help. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you for letting me run super over. I really appreciate that.
You did great.